Hey everybody, welcome back to the Percy Jackson of Poseidon podcast. So this is going to be my review for Season 2, Episode 5, where they go visit Cece's spa and resort. So there's a lot of things going on in this episode. I really liked it. There's one thing I didn't like, and we'll get to that later. But there's a lot going on in this episode. We get Circe, we get the Sirens, we meet Polyphemus, and we even get a glimpse at Athena. So yeah, there's a lot to go over, so let's get into it. So first off, let's just talk about Grover and Clarice, because there's a little bit less of them. So Clarice washes ashore to Polyphemus' island, and is immediately captured by him, obviously. And then she manages to, get herself out of the net, and then she wants to, try and climb out of the cave, because apparently there's, a big hole at the ceiling of the cave that you can see the big tree where the golden fleece is hanging off of. So she tries to climb, and Grover, warns her about Polyphemus, and, everything's a trap and all that. And then she falls. And so then Grover actually just hides her, tucks her away, because Polyphemus is, partially blind. And then, it's actually kind of funny, because Polyphemus, he's partially blind, and Grover's, been wearing this veil over his head in the wedding dress to, disguise himself. But then, he forgot to put the veil over, and then Polyphemus is oh, you're not a Cyclops, you're a satyr, I'm going to capture you. So then he captures Grover, and then there's, this cool reveal, actually, where Polyphemus pretends to, talk to Clarice, in Grover's voice, which is interesting. Something we saw Tyson do back in, I think, the third episode on the Luke's cruise ship. So that was pretty cool. And Polyphemus reveals that, he knew Grover was a satyr the whole time, and he was he's playing dumb and using him as bait to lure the other demigods on the quest, the Golden Fleece, so that he can capture more demigods. And it kind of just proves that Poly is he isn't as dumb as he is blind. So I just think that's kind of an interesting way to portray the character and this little twist of everything. So then he captures both Clarice and Grover. And I think that's the last we see of them in this episode, actually. But it's nice to have Grover back in a full episode finally, catch up with him, and I like to see him interacting with Clarice. And I love that Clarice is trying to save herself the whole time. She's kind of ignoring what Grover's saying. And then she gets a really sweet moment where she thinks she's talking to Grover, so she kind of opens up a little bit and admits she doesn't want to disappoint her father, Ares. And so I really like what we're doing with Clarice this season. I think we're just adding more nuance and layers to the character, and it really makes her a little bit more, she's still very brash and wants to go at it alone, but it makes her a little bit more relatable and understandable, I think. So I like what we get with Clarice and Grover here. Okay, so let's get on to the main heart of the episode, and we get to Circe's island. And so Percy and Annabeth both wake up in the spa on Circe's island, and this is where the one moment that I didn't like in this episode happens, and it's something that they used to do a lot in Season 1 that I really hated, and they so far have kind of avoided it this season until this episode, and that's the reveal of Circe. So, Annabeth and Percy are, just in her office, and then, she just, levitates, something to her, and Annabeth goes, hey, that's magic, that's real magic, and these animals they're probably people, you're Circe. Girl, what? And even Circe's I wasn't trying to hide it. And it's just a little bit ridiculous. And, Percy is basically a waterbender. Annabeth has a cap of, invisibility. But Cece, she floats a pen to her, and Annabeth's that's magic. You're Circe. And, what island did you think you were on in the Sea of Monsters, Annabeth? I just don't understand. It's just, kind of an eye-rolling moment. And again, they did this, constantly in Season 1, revealing who the monsters were. They're I know who you are. What? But also, I don't think it was that hard to figure out, Annabeth. Like Circe says, I was not hiding who I am. I don't know, it was just a little bit of an eye-rolling moment. I didn't like it. It kind of made Annabeth look a little dumb. I can understand, if maybe Percy had said that would make more sense, because he's not as ingrained in this mythological world as Annabeth is. And Annabeth is supposed to be the smarter one. So, I don't know. That just bothered me just a little bit. Because, again, where did you think you were, Annabeth? And also, her animals were, just random animals. They weren't, the pigs Cersei turns Odysseus' men into, and they weren't all guinea pigs like in the books. There was like random, like she could have just had random animals in her office. Maybe she loves animals. You don't know, Annabeth. So I just thought that was like a bit of like a weird rationale Annabeth had. Anyway, moving on from that, there's the one thing I didn't really like, but so also Cersei has turned people into not just guinea pigs, like in the book, but all sorts of animals. Like there's a snake in there, there's like birds, there's like all sorts of animals in there. And then this is the moment where we also set up Percy using his powers. Like he gets really emotional, looking in the mirror for his fatal flaw, and his powers like are just like going off all around, and he like creates like little whirlpools in the cup, and Annabeth notices that, so that later on when Percy's a guinea pig and he does it, creates a little whirlpool and like the little guinea pig water ball feeder, he gets her attention and she notices, and she's like, oh yeah, that is Percy. Also, Cece had like riptide the pen on her desk, so Annabeth that was a moment where you could put two and two together, made a little bit more sense, because she was trying to hide that she turned Percy into a guinea pig. But what Cersei says, or Cece as she's called in the show, says that she helps heroes find their fatal flaws, and she claims to help them so that they can get past the sirens, but really she's just trapping them in her spa. And so Percy finds out his fatal flaw is mostly his humanity and his friends, like he's not willing to sacrifice his friends for the quest, and that could, be a flaw down the line. And Annabeth's flaw is her pride and need to please her mom, Athena, which she's like fully aware of. She's like, this is my flaw, I know it. But I think this season's doing a really great job giving us these little character development moments. Like I said, with Clarice, we also got some good character moments here with Percy talking to Annabeth, and Annabeth, what she says to Cece, she was trying to cover up, like, the fact that she knew Percy was a guinea pig, but also I think it was true. And I think we see that in what happens with her and the sirens also. And then there's also a little moment like where Percy like talks to one of the spa workers, and he figures out that Cece is like not really, she's trapping people. She's not really training them to leave. She's just trapping them by saying, and giving them false hope that they could someday leave, but like they don't really. And like every like 50 years, she lets a hero escape, so to give people false hope. But again, like, was that like really a big reveal? Like, if you know who Cersei is, So the reveals about Cersei were just kind of pointless, I think. Especially if you, I don't know, if you're aware, if you've seen Odysseus, the Odyssey, and you know who Cersei is, or if you've read Madeline Miller's book, I think we all know who Cersei is. Anyway, so she turns Percy into a pig for him trying to exploit that information from her. But like I said, Annabeth figures it out pretty quickly. She gives the guinea pigs, vitamins that Hermes gave them, so it turns them back into people, and then we get like a quick glimpse of, the famous pirate Blackbeard. And I'm not sure if he's a character like in some of the other books, but I don't remember him from the original 5 books. If he was in the Sea of Monsters book, it was very brief, and I don't know if maybe he plays a bigger role in something like Heroes of Olympus or something. But like, I don't know. I saw a lot of like online fan chatter of like, ooh, Blackbeard. So if he appears again, let me know. But then so Annabeth and Percy escape Cece's island, and they sail away towards the sirens. But first, Percy had an idea to steal like the magic beeswax that Cece had, the one that Odysseus and his men used. And so he steals it, but they realize there's only enough beeswax for one person, Annabeth. And then, so Annabeth ties Percy to the mast, and so leaves Annabeth to face the sirens. And then they got me here again. At first I thought maybe like Athena actually did come down and help Annabeth, but they kind of did like a double fake out here a little bit. So first I was like waiting for Percy to like hop out and save Annabeth, because we think we see what the sirens are showing her, and it probably partially is what the sirens are showing her, which is like Percy and Luke and Grover arguing in the tunnel we saw from the 4th episode. But then like it pops out of that, and like Annabeth like goes to kill one of the sirens, and then like Athena comes down and kills the final siren, and she tells Annabeth how proud she is, but then it's revealed that was an illusion to trick Annabeth, and the sirens almost do get her. But then like somewhere out of nowhere, Percy just comes and like rescues her, and he has like a rope tied around his waist or something. I'm not really sure how that worked, because he had to have had enough slack on the rope to jump out and grab Annabeth, but then like the rope immediately pulls them away. So I'm not really sure what was going on with that. But Percy saves her. And so a couple things here. So the sirens, they are like these like lava rock monster creatures with like barnacles and seaweed on them. They're not like the pretty song singers of mythology. I will say, it seems a bit limiting because they're like fused in with the rock, and so all they can do is like wiggle around and reach out with their arms. But they are really scary looking though, so I thought that was kind of an interesting take on the sirens. And then we also get our first look at Athena, goddess of wisdom, battle. Annabeth's mom. And I gotta say, I don't like the yellow jumper that that she's in. I liked her little crown though. But I do like this actress. She played Billie Holiday in like a Hulu movie. Her name's Audra Day, and I feel like she could be like Annabeth's mom. And I see there's like fan casting of maybe like Jesse L. Martin being Annabeth's dad. I don't know if that's like a rumor, if that's been confirmed, but if he was, then I think that would be perfect casting, because I could totally see Annabeth being like the child of like Audra Day and Jesse L. Martin. I think that works pretty well. And we don't get a lot of Athena here. She mainly just comes down, looks pretty cool, and tells Annabeth like how proud she is of her. Like, it's what Annabeth would want to hear. That's why the sirens play it for her. And so it's just a brief little thing. It's not really Athena, but it's kind of an interesting like introduction look to her. And so I hope we get more Athena going forward, but I do like what we get here, even though it's an illusion. And so Percy and Annabeth set sail to Polyphemus' island. Percy reveals, that he saw, what he saw from the sirens was just Annabeth. And, for those Percabeth shippers out there, this is definitely a cute little moment for them. I think kind of they're both thinking it, but none of them say it. That, they got a thing for each other, but they're not going to say it. So it's a cute little moment, and I do think it's sweet that Percy tells her, like, I was thinking about you. They kind of go backtracks. He's like, well, if you weren't in danger, who knows what else I have seen. So, but it's a cute little moment, and I think, we kind of get, earlier when Cersei was revealing his fatal flaw to him in the mirror, we kind of get that, I think, would have been maybe what the sirens showed him. But since we kind of changed up the chronology of the story a little bit, he tells Annabeth, oh, I just saw you, so it's a cute moment. So I really enjoyed this episode. I think it was fun to see Cece's Island Spa. There's actually an interesting little moment in the scene in the beginning where Annabeth and Percy wake up and Cece's walking them around, and there's like this hero named Stavros that like leaves, and it was just kind of funny to see like this big man in a gladiator costume like riding on a jet ski. I just thought that was kind of a cute little moment, and it's fun to see. And just kind of touring around the spa, I think, was kind of just a different setting and something a little bit more lighthearted, to kind of balance out what, some of the darker themes, and I really like the actress playing Cersei. I've seen her in a few other things. I would like to get to see her again in the show. I don't know if we ever get back to seeing Cersei again, but they're changing things up for the show, so maybe I still hoping maybe we'll see Medusa again sometime. I like what they did with her in season 1 too, so hopefully some of the more standout one-off characters maybe could come back a bit more, even if they weren't in the book. Maybe we can just create a little more, fill in a little more story there. I think that would be kind of cool. It was nice to finally see Grover and Polyphemus and the island. So I loved all those little character moments and diving into, all the characters' insecurities and their flaws. There is no Tyson in this episode. We only get to see his reflection, in the mirror that Percy was looking at, just a little glimpse here and there. But there's just kind of a lot going on. We couldn't really catch up with him. And we'll catch up with him at the beginning of the next episode. So, yeah, I just really love this episode. I thought it was really well done. So much going on. And, despite that one moment I didn't like, I think everything else was really well done. I liked everything we did at Cersei's Island and all of that. The sirens were cool. The glimpse of Athena, catching up with Grover and Polyphemus, and Clarice's moment also as well. So I just really liked everything we did in this episode. So, and it also didn't feel like a short episode, which I like. So, hopefully we can keep that going. But anyway, let me know what you all think in the comments below. Maybe you guys didn't like it as much as I did. Maybe you have a different take on the Sirens or Cersei. Let me know what you guys think. So stay tuned to the channel for more Percy Jackson content. I'm sorry I'm a little bit behind. But thank you all for watching the Percy Jackson Upside and podcast. And until next time, later, Seaweed Brain. Bye.